somebody were sitting in jail giving orders to harm people, beat people up. I mean, we wouldn't allow that. Adultery, if you're having sexual relationships with your spouse. Joining me, private investigator Sam Brower, who recently authored a book called Prophets Pray. It's about his 7-year investigation of the Jeffs and the FLDS. Former FLDS member Flora Jessup, who escaped the sect and is the author of the book Church of Lies. Good to see you again, Flora. And CNN correspondent Gary Tuckman, who has been covering the FLDS for several years. Gary, why did he do this? He ordered his congregation to stop having, the married ones, to stop having relations. What's he up to here?
Right. The ostensible reason is to show that they're pure while he's behind bars, and then when he gets out of prison, they can resume having sex. But the real reason is they want to see Warren Jeffs and his top aides, which includes his brother Lyle Jeffs, who is still extremely supportive of him. The people who guarantee they won't have sex are still supportive of Warren Jeffs. But Dr. Drew, I've talked to someone who is still in the FLDS, who still regards Warren Jeffs as his Messiah, but he has been kicked out too because he said he had to tell the truth, and when he was asked if he's having sex with his wife, he said he is, and therefore he was told he has to leave his wife, he has to leave his children, but he's told me at this point his wife has said she will stay with him, but he doesn't know what's going to happen.
So let me get this straight, Gary. So you're talking to this couple who have been ordered to separate, and they're sort of held up somewhere now while the church elders are telling them to separate?
Right. This man, and there are many people in the FLDS, it's believed there are at least 10,000 members. There may be more, but there are many people who are not polygamous. A lot of them want to be polygamous, but a lot of them are still married to one woman. This man is married to one woman. He has a lot of children. He's been told he has to leave his wife and children. His belief is if he leaves, his wife will be assigned to somebody else. But he is determined not to leave. He is staying in his house. His wife has agreed to stay with him. What's really interesting, though, is this man tells me, and I've known him for a long time, and I'm keeping his name quiet to protect him, but this man has told me that his own mother has told him that it would be best for him to leave his wife, to leave his children, to listen to Warren Jeffs, because Warren Jeffs is the prophet. He is the voice of God on earth.
And Sam, I know we've got a lot more to talk. Excuse me, and Gary, we have a lot more to talk about here. But I'm curious. So this is a guy who was very committed to the church that you develop a relationship with to help gain insight into what's going on there, and now it's turned on him. Is that accurate?
Right, and he's still he still considers himself a member of the FLDS, and he still loves Warren Jeffs, and he still regards Warren Jeffs as a prophet, and he doesn't want to leave the church. But he's very sad about it. He's been told he has to leave the church because he acknowledged continuing to have sexual relations with his wife. What's really important to mention is a number of these people have been told you can have sex still for the purpose of having a child, but you can't have it for purpose of pleasure. And he didn't want to lie, and he told the truth. And he said, yes, I've had sex with my wife. He also said that he went on a vacation with his family, and that is considered a Gentile, quote-unquote, Gentile pursuit. Gentile is the word that FLDS members use to demonstrate people who are against the church, who are not part of it. Based on those two factors, he says he was kicked out of the church. His priesthood, he tells me, was taken away from him.
It's just that story puts a fine focus on how many lives are being destroyed by these people. Sam, I understand you were in Short Creek on New Year's Day and saw FLDS members going to the meeting house to be interviewed by Lyle Jeffs. What did you find out?
Right. They were, they were actually lined up in the meeting house to be interviewed by Lyle Jeffs, and if they were found worthy, they went from there to another building where they were rebaptized and recovenanted. I actually, on New Year's Day, met with a gentleman who was in very similar circumstances as the guy Gary talked to. And the only difference is, at 3 a.m. that morning, the elders of the church came to his house, pulled his wife and 10 children out of his home. He had a 1-year-old baby daughter. He had one daughter that's about 12, going on 13 years old. Left him with no family. His wife and children just went with the church elders, and he was left there on his own. It's creating a very volatile situation out there, of the haves and the have-nots. The haves being the ones, the people who are okay to be baptized and kind of be a part of Warren Jeffs' hierarchy. The have-nots are the ones who are not being allowed to be baptized, who are waiting to scratch their way up to that other group.
And Sam, I heard also that once they are rebaptized, this may be rumor, but you can tell me whether to dispel this or not, that then when they began to have physical relations again as husband and wife, it was again observed by the church elders in this bizarre, pagan ceremony that we've heard about, that kind of thing?
Well, there are rumors going around. It kind of fits in Warren's MO, since Warren has had these ritualistic rapes inside of his temple in Texas, that he would now require the church members to have the sex acts witnessed by his church elders. As I say, that's kind of the rumor that's going around. We're kind of waiting to substantiate that, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me.
Now, here's something that's not rumor. Sam has gotten a hold of the questionnaire that these church members have to answer. I've got it right here. And the series of questions, I'll share some of them with you. For instance, let's see, do you only think pure thoughts? I wonder how many of my crew here in the studio can answer affirmatively to that. Just saying. Are your desires and pleasures of unrighteousness? Do you dwell in wickedness of evil dross of this generation? Yeah, there's a lot of affirmative in this room here. Are you abiding the law of purity and righteous obedience in my holy law? My, I'm assuming, meaning Warren Jeffs. Sam, if you said if they asked for an understanding of these questions, even if asked for, how they were supposed to answer them, they were immediately sort of excommunicated?
Yeah, in fact, the my in there is actually God. These are God asking these people these questions.
Well, isn't my and Warren Jeffs the same? I mean, God and Warren Jeffs the same thing, right? Certainly as Warren Jeffs sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, they're of course alter egos of each other, and
of course,
and if they even question, if they even lack understanding, that means they're not tuned in to the Spirit of God, and that they'll be excommunicated for that.
So if they even don't understand the question, they're not in tune with the Spirit of God. Oh my God. So Flora, you've been inside, you've had to live in this. Well, help us understand why people are still so determined to obey this nightmare.
Well, they are raised to believe that only through the prophet, only through Warren Jeffs, can they reach eternal salvation. And so it's the belief system that if they do not obey his word, his edict, then they will go to hell and burn in hell for eternity. It's a very scary prospect. I will say one of the things
Flora, I want to interrupt you. Flora, I got to interrupt. Let me interrupt 1 second. So sometimes, family bonds are very intense. And as the head of a household, if someone said to me, you got to leave your family or you're going to burn in hell, I go, I'll take my chances with hell. You know what I mean? Doesn't anybody step up and go, just let me just think about this for a second? No?
When you're raised from the cradle to believe this way, it's extremely difficult to get out of there. Everything you're taught is everything outside of that community and that church grouping is evil and wicked, and you are raised in terror of it. So for you to stand up and say no